We continue our investigation both today and tonight as it relates to who is Robert Mueller, the man that everybody tells us is beyond reproach and of the utmost integrity, and Donald Trump fires him, it'll be a disaster in the country. Well, number one, Donald Trump is not firing him, never suggested he was going to fire him in any way, shape, matter, or form. This is all media hysteria and spin. Sara Carter is with us, investigative reporter, Fox News contributor. David Schoen, civil rights criminal defense attorney. Sara, yesterday on the program, we did a pretty big, deep dive into Robert Mueller and his time in Boston and how, in fact, the FBI had a deal with the notorious criminal and murderer, Whitey Bulger. And, in fact, Mueller was responsible, just like Andrew Weissman, for withholding exculpatory evidence in a case. 4 innocent people went to jail. 2 died in prison. Ultimately, the judge awarded over $100 million because of Mueller holding back the evidence in that case. But yet he's a man beyond reproach, we're told.
This is why it is so important for the public to understand who Mueller really is. Because if you just go by statements made by lawmakers, but on both sides of the aisle, both Republicans and Democrats, and as well as others who allowed Mueller, you'll never know the truth about what happened in Mueller, in Mueller's past cases, or Andrew Weissman's past cases, or the, 13 people that are sitting on the special counsel who have been very, adamant about their stance with the Democratic Party, making donations to the Democratic Party, and seeing a lot of conflicts of interest with these folks. But also, where is this investigation going in the future? That's what we've got to look at here, Sean. We can't understand where the special counsel investigation is going if we don't understand the past. And if you look at the past, Mueller, Comey, who he was friends with. There's a huge, long-time friend with. There's a conflict of interest right there. Weissman, who's on the special counsel, they've had some pretty serious problems in the past. And David Schoen brought it up very well in the show last night when he spoke about, both of them being involved in 2 of the biggest problems with the FBI in their history. The 2 biggest cases that were bungled. And let's go a little bit further. Even the anthrax case was a potential problem for Mueller. So we have a right to question. Now, granted, Mueller, there are many things about him that people can commend. His service in the military as a Marine, he was awarded the Bronze Star, of course. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there were cases in the past that were very questionable, things that they did that were very questionable, that should raise the concern of the president and his counsel, and they should be able to defend themselves publicly.
Are there things in the past that are beyond troubling? In other words, David, if you're talking about 2 of the biggest bungled cases in history, I'm looking all over this Whitey Bulger case and this, immunity deal for Whitey Bulger while he's committing more murders. And then, of course, 4 innocent people go to jail, and then, of course, it's overturned, and $100 million+ judgment in that case. Well, that sounds a lot like Andrew Weissman. It's always been puzzling to me why he picked Andrew Weissman in the first place.
Yes, well, that latter question has a lot of answers, I think, as you know. But as to the question of whether it's more than troubling, it absolutely is. Listen, Sarah has written a definitive piece on this, and now it's being fleshed out even more thanks to her research. But what's more than troubling about it is people died, people were killed under the supervision of these 2 men. And what I mean that very directly. I'm not playing games here. Mueller was the supervising U.S. attorney over this agent, John Connolly. John Connolly is in prison for murder. He was complicit in the murder with his informants. He passed information informants. Andrew Weissman was the assistant U.S. attorney in charge of top echelon informant and the FBI agent Linda Vecchio who handled him. People were killed. Innocent people were killed. A 17-year-old boy, Patrick Porco, was killed because of information that was passed between them. So these 2 presided over that. So it's either they knew and something horribly, horribly wrong happened, or it's a question of malfeasance. And people died either way, and people who were wrongly convicted remain in prison today. So yes, that's more than troubling to me. And I'd say to Mr. Mueller, quite frankly, with all due respect, when he says what happened back then happened a long time ago, not for the families, not for the families of the 17-year-old boy who was killed, not for the people still lingering in prison.
You know, I listen to all this, and I'm researching this, and I said this to you last night on TV, to both of you. I cannot believe all this time nobody has taken the time to do the deep dive into Mueller. I mean, we knew he was the FBI director. We knew Obama wanted him 2 more years beyond his 10-year term, and we know that, quote, he's a Republican. That's what we keep hearing. He's a Republican, but he certainly seems to be after Donald Trump, because if he wanted to have any semblance of fairness and not have an appearance of impropriety and bias, then he would never have assembled the team that he assembled. Sarah Carter.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to look at this case by case. I mean, I just want to go back to a couple of things, and I think the Whitey Bulger case is really quite extraordinary and important. But let's just look at the anthrax case too. That was a case where Mueller worked hand in hand with Comey in this, and it was a completely bungled case, and it was probably one of the biggest cases at that time that those two ever handled. And we saw that they botched the investigation. It was in 2001. Into the letter attacks. I mean, 5 people died. I think 17 or 18 people were infected, with the anthrax. And they started chasing down the wrong man. They chased down the wrong guy and missed the right guy. I mean, and this was one of the biggest cases. There was a lot of pressure coming down on them. It showed that they kind of bent into pressure. They bent towards that pressure. They went after, an innocent man, Stephen Hatfill. And, when all the evidence, if they would have been following it the right way, would have pointed to this other guy, Ford Dietrich. There are questions here that we have to ask. And Sean, I keep going over this again and again. The fact that this case, that the special counsel was brought against the president based on erroneous information, based on a flimsy foundation, based on lies, disinformation from the Russians, for a dossier that was paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC, should raise questions about where this special counsel is going.
Stay right there, Sarah.
I'm committed. Why are we going in that direction?
Take a quick break. More with David Schoen, more with Sarah Carter. 800-941-SEAN, a toll-free telephone number, is our investigation into the investigators, starting with Robert Mueller, continues, something nobody in the media is touching. Right, as we continue our investigation into the investigators led by Robert Mueller, he's beyond reproach. Well, no, his background and his history is showing just the opposite. We're now beginning to fill in a gap, at least in my mind. I never understood why he put together this merry band of Obama, Clinton, and DNC donors and no Trump donors, no Republicans. But we're told he's a Republican. Well, okay, he worked under Obama, and he was also there for the Uranium One deal, and he had an informant inside of Putin's network and did nothing. We continue with Sarah Carter and David Schoen. SarahACarter.com. Her articles about this are pretty stunning and revealing when you take a look at them. This is personal for you. You know a lot of people, David, in Boston, and a lot of people in Boston are scratching their heads saying him.
Right. Ironically, I have another connection. That is that I was approached to represent Whitey Bulger after he was convicted, but I had declined that. But can
I ask you, why did you decline that? I think it was on the lam for what, like 18 years, 16 years or something?
Right. After he was convicted, pretty quickly, he had a couple of issues on appeal, but I decided it wasn't for me for a couple of reasons, including that the court wouldn't appoint me up there since I was out of the area, but. In any event, it was an interesting case. But there are a number of reasons people in Boston were upset. But I want to get back to something that you raised just a few moments ago, and you asked, isn't it puzzling that people haven't complained about, that we haven't done a deep dive, as you say, into Mr. Mueller? And then Sarah raised a great point. She gave the example of the anthrax case. I'll tell you what I think that really highlights. The expression politics makes strange bedfellows, really in the ultimate here. What do I mean by that? Well, back in the day, 9/11 time or the anthrax case or other examples, civil libertarians were criticizing Mr. Mueller left and right, that he supported torture for a variety of reasons we can go into in detail if and when we need to. How on earth is it that those same people today lionize him as a hero as if the principles that they purportedly were standing on and cherished in criticizing him originally simply didn't matter. And I suggest to you that the answer is a very sad one. It's that this pure, unadulterated hatred of the president, anger at the election results, seems to simply trump, no pun intended, principle in these cases. How can that be? What does it say about these civil libertarians, many of whom are close friends of mine?
Yeah. All right. I'm going to have to let you go. We'll have both of you on Hannity tonight. We're going to continue this deep dive. We'll do the job of the media that they're not going to do. Great work. SarahACarter.com, Hannity.com for the articles that she's doing on the investigation into Robert Mueller. And David Schoen, thank you. We'll see you again as well.